Hello viewers, and a special thank you to subscribers. I really appreciate that extra little show of support, guys. It's very nice. So today we're going to tackle a question someone gave me recently. They wanted to know if they should buy an Xbox One controller. They already have an Xbox 360 controller and they're unsure if it's really worth their investment. So I'm going to give you my impressions of the two controllers, comparison side by side, then we'll draw some conclusions. Alright, so this is an Xbox 360 controller. It's been around for about 8 years, so everyone should have a pretty good familiarity with it, but let's walk through it just real quick. Alright, on the front you have two analog sticks that have really become the benchmark of the industry. They're concave at the top, they've got a couple little nubs to really give you a sense of grip, and give your thumb a feeling of orientation to top, bottom, left, right. We have shoulder buttons that are digitally responsive right there, and analog triggers. On this face, we have the second generation Xbox 360 D-pad. It's much improved, which you can definitely say, and that's 100% honest. Is it a great D-pad? No, it's still not. I wouldn't turn to it for a fighting game, and anyone who's tried that will tell you the same thing. X, Y, A, B, great buttons, a nice smooth feel. They go into the surface really well. There's nothing to be said about them. It's outstanding. They're just really exactly what they need to be, but Nintendo pioneered that 20 years ago. Back, start, and then the Xbox button right there in the middle is a multi-function button, and depending on whether you're using it on a console or a PC, it has different functions, but it works just fine. Ergonomically, you can see the backside. We get a little bit of a hand indentation, and when you're holding it naturally, depending on the size of your hand, it really feels good. You throw your index fingers over the triggers. They have access to the bumpers. What really made this controller stand out and become a phenomenon over the last half-decade is just how long you can play with this in your hand and never really feel fatigued. It's always going to feel nice. Everything feels well in reach for a wide range of hand sizes, and nothing really with repetitive use is going to become bothersome, unlike like the PlayStation D-pad, which will start digging into your hand, or the convex thumbsticks that your fingers will repeatedly fall off of. So that's the Xbox 360 controller, really standard in controller design. Next up, we're going to look at the Xbox One and how that compares. Alright, here we have the Xbox One controller. Not as many people are going to be as intimately familiar with it because it hadn't been around as long, and there's a battle between PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. How does it differ from the Xbox 360 controller? You still have digital shoulder buttons, you still have analog triggers, couple sticks on the front, a pad, 4 buttons, back, forward, and Xbox button. So there's a little bit of difference in execution. Let's start with the analog sticks. They are a little bit higher. They have a nice textured grip around the outside that really keeps you on there, as well as a little bit of a divot on the inside. And it lacks the nubs that give you direction, but I think most people develop an instinct they don't really need that directional feedback. They are a bit smaller on the top surface, and some people criticize that. I don't have overly large hands, so it's not a problem for me. So if you want to get an honest criticism of that, you might have to try a different reviewer. As for the pad, it really cuts to the chase. It is in every way better than the Xbox 360's D-pad, even the version 2. It drops out the disc design altogether. It's not even an option. What it is concave, so that if you're using something where you don't need fine D-pad controls, a shooter where you just really need a couple extra options, you can just kind of easily roll your hand around in there, and it feels smoother. Let's go to the back of the controller real quick. Let's look at these triggers. A lot has been said about them, and people have used a lot of words to come up with the conclusion. I like it. So let's just cut to that end. I like it. They have about the same pressure required to really depress them, but it feels like a smoother motion all the way down, and the new shape really adjusts to your finger, and it's just another one of those ergonomic developments that Microsoft has really spent a lot of time and effort perfecting. The shoulder buttons maybe a little bit clickier, which is actually a good thing. I mean, it depends on the person. Some people might not like the sound, but I like the actual tactile feedback of something that has got a clear mechanical feel to it. The face buttons, nearly identical. They might be a hair closer to the surface, but I think they're the same exact size. So no longer do you have start and back anymore. You have menu and window. There's strange options. They essentially do the same thing, and the Xbox button's been raised up here a little bit, so you're less likely to hit it accidentally and go to the Xbox menu. It's the same thing as turning on gaming mode on your keyboard. You don't want to hit that Windows key in the middle of something intense. That being said, these buttons get a little bit closer where you could accidentally slide off and hit them, and that's not a good thing either. But it's an honest criticism, and I got to tell you about it. The back of the controller. These ridges get a little bit deeper, and it actually accommodates your hand even better, I've found. So when it comes to endurance and marathon gaming, I played Forza for 6 hours, and my hands didn't even begin to cramp. So let's go over to the one last major issue, the battery pack. You either loved it or hated it with the Xbox 360 battery pack. A lot of people really got tired of changing this out or putting in the rechargeable battery. It stuck out in the middle, and it really added some definition to the sides here. I've heard from people with larger hands that really became uncomfortable. Not an issue anymore. You can see over here that Microsoft's just changed it to a simple battery pack. If that's not there, you just put in 2 AA's, slide the cover back on over it, and then you have the charging port right there, which is also smaller. It works out better, period, overall. Another one of those things is just a straight-up improvement with no compromise. So let's hear my conclusions on this. So where does that bring us? Well, for starters, we have the Xbox 360 controller, which is LED controller design for more than half a decade, 7 or 8 years now, for a good reason. Everything good that can be said about this controller, I already did it, and everyone else has done it for a long darn time. It got me through Dark Souls 1 and 2 without skipping a beat, so that says a lot about it, and even has a very nice Gears of War skin, because I'm a sucker for promotional controllers. Then we have the Xbox One controller. Microsoft went back to the design shop, spent so many millions of dollars, I'm sure we discussed all of us, and they made a better controller. That's just the long and short of it. Things got smoother, everything got better that could be made better, and that wasn't even a long list. The only thing you can maybe complain about is that the tops of the sticks got a little bit smaller. But since I don't have overly large hands, I can't give you proper feedback on that. Is it worth $60 to upgrade? That is entirely up to you. I already had an Xbox One controller because I have an Xbox One. And when it came to getting one for my desktop, I went out and got the Titanfall variety, paying even more than $60 because I love the controller and I like Titanfall. So it's going to come down to your budget, but it is an improvement. It is the best controller, and it will be great for whatever game you put it to. So that's my feedback on it, and hopefully it helps you out. Thanks.